Live from downtown Vancouver at the Vancouver Film School campus, it's time for EP Live. Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool. Thank you so much for joining us on this Friday that is going to lead into a very fun weekend. I promise you, you're all going to have a great time this weekend because there's lots to play and there's lots to do. It is that busy time of the year when all of the entertainment companies around the world say, let's just release everything right now. And so it keeps us very busy reviewing all this stuff and putting content together. But I've been having a great time playing games and seeing movies, and we've got some good things to talk about today. Joker, Breakpoint. We've got a great buried treasure for you as well. And we've also got some great people in the audience. It's good to see everybody here. Thank you for coming. This rundown is the first thing that we're going to start off with, as we always do here on EPN, which you could watch live and in person, by the way. If you're in the Vancouver area, it's at the VFS Cafe at 390 West Hastings, right downtown. And we'd love it if you come and join us. But this rundown is dedicated to Luke Lau, who says, my first game, Cap and the Avengers for the Sega Genesis, at the arcade. I remember not knowing Vision's name and just wanting to play as Golden Guy. I think I played it at my first grade birthday party. I just did a 16-bit superhero on that game, and it's terrific. All right, Luke Lau, this rundown is all yours. Now, one of the biggest game publishers in the world is embracing cloud streaming. Rockstar Games has finally announced the long-awaited PC version of last year's Red Dead Redemption 2. And on top of that, one of the places that it'll be available is Google's Stadia streaming platform. This means it will be the first Rockstar title available on Stadia, although there are rumors that GTA 5 is coming along as well, with that game having recently launched on the PlayStation 4's cloud streaming platform, PlayStation Now. Either way, it's safe to say that Rockstar is jumping into the cloud gaming revolution, so expect more and more big game makers to follow. Stadia launches next month, and that's kind of freaky that we're getting a massive kind of endeavor from Google happening so soon. It's next month, and it feels, I mean, this is a big announcement, but it feels like, when is the info coming? You know, when are the accolades? And like, I don't have my copy yet. I actually, Jade's working over there, so of course I signed up to support her. And I've got lots of other friends over there as well, Phil Harrison. And I said, yeah, I want to see that. I hope it works. I hope it's phenomenal, but I don't have any access to anything. I feel like it's kind of launching quietly, which seems weird for such a massive platform like that. But I also kind of feel that way about Apple Arcade, with Apple, announcing stuff and showing games on the keynote, but I don't feel like lots of people are talking about Apple Arcade. Do you guys know about Apple Arcade? Yeah, are you signed up? Oh, you watched the video that I did? Okay, thank you. Yeah, but I feel like this streaming revolution is coming and more people should be talking about all of this stuff. But I am excited. I can't wait. I'm also super excited that Rockstar is figuring out more ways to get money out of people with their games and different platforms. I think people have been wanting a lot of these titles on PC for a long time. A lot of their titles on PC for a long time, especially Red Dead. So that's super exciting. Can't wait. All right, Nintendo has given Super Mario Maker 2 something that it frankly should have had all along. The latest update for the creation game adds the long-requested Play with Friends feature, allowing players to join their friends and play levels with them online. This very basic feature was noticeably absent from the game at launch, much to the chagrin of players everywhere. Like other Switch games, you'll need an active Switch Online subscription to access multiplayer. When the subscription launched last year, Nintendo promised that it would give them the revenue to improve their online services, and few changes have really happened since then. So, yeah, I think that this is great that this is happening, but I also think that we can start to expect a little more from the Nintendo online subscription in general. I feel like it's still kind of ludicrous that we have to have smartphones attached to access voice chat and stuff like that. But we get SNES games if you sign up for the online subscription. So you got to take the good with the bad with regards to Nintendo. And they haven't charged that much, which is pretty cool. But it would be good if they kept the price low, kept the games coming, like the classic games coming, and then upped the features, and really embraced sort of the online opportunities that exist there. We know it's coming. We know that Nintendo is also going to be playing in the subscription streaming space in the not too distant future, but they'll probably take the wait and see attitude that they always do and then come in with their own kind of zag while everybody else is zigging. Yeah, and they will improve. That's the only way for them to go. It's just okay right now, so we know it'll get better. Now, Nathan Drake has found a new director to guide him on his journey to theaters. Sony Pictures has announced that the big screen Uncharted movie will be helmed by Bumblebee and Kubo and the Two Strings director Travis Knight. He replaces 10 Cloverfield Lane director Dan Trachtenberg, who recently dropped out. And several other big filmmakers have also come and gone as the game has struggled to find its way to theaters for more than a decade. This latest incarnation is set to star Spider-Man himself, Tom Holland, who recently just rescued Spider-Man as part of the MCU by calling Bob Iger at Disney and making everybody get along and bring Spider-Man back. So Tom Holland is a superhero in real life. And it already has a release date set for December 2020, but don't be surprised if the Uncharted movie gets pushed back. Here's the thing that I've been thinking about this Uncharted movie. It's an amazing property. The games are so cinematic already. It feels like you're playing a movie. That's one of the great sort of cornerstones of the franchise. But why haven't they done more with Uncharted as a property, across other storytelling mediums? Like, why don't we get a monthly Nathan Drake comic series? I think that makes tons of sense. They've made indelible, super memorable characters with a great sense of humor, lots of cool adventure beats across all the games. It's great fodder to make a new comic series, and they don't have that kind of thing out there. They've done, comics attached to game launches and stuff like that, but there's a lot that we could be doing with Uncharted as a property. Maybe it makes more sense for Uncharted to be a series. Now, I liked what Travis Knight did with Bumblebee. I think he's a good choice to be the director. I think that was his first live action stuff. He'd done a lot of animation stuff, and it was very good. I mean, he was very competent. Bumblebee was a solid film, especially if you're a Gen 1 Transformers fan like Johnny Millennium is, and I saw it with him, and he was an elated little baby with his toy. He was like, oh my God. It was awesome. I wish you guys could have seen that. But I enjoyed Bumblebee, and I watched a lot of behind the scenes stuff sort of leading up to the film and then afterwards, and I like Travis Knight. I am disappointed that Dan Trachtenberg, who I've known for years, he's friends with lots of people that I know in the gaming space because he was part of the Totally Rad show, and I wish that he was the guy that was still in charge of Uncharted, and I when he writes his tell-all book and we find out why he left the project, that's going to be interesting. Still, I'm psyched for this movie. I don't know if Tom Holland is the right guy, but we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully it's good. All right, now one of the biggest Marvel games of all time is getting a sequel. Game maker Kabam has announced Marvel Realm of Champions, a follow-up to their hit 2014 fighting game, Contest of Champions. No gameplay has been revealed, but we do know that it'll be once again see the Marvel heroes and villains fight each other, this time on the far-off Marvel planet known as Battle World. That means players can expect different cosmic-style maps in both PvE and PvP matches. Realm of Champions is due out next year, and I loved Contest of Champions when it first came out. I had lots of friends, that were addicted to it. Some of them actually from the game development community that was just blown away by the mechanics and the art and all the character collection. But I think we are moving quickly away from the microtransaction model and the copious amounts of different storefronts and currency collection that is a big part of mobile gaming right now with what Apple has got out there with Apple Arcade and what Google's got out there with Play Pass. So it'll be interesting to see if this hits with that same kind of impact that Contest of Champions did, or maybe there's going to be a bit of a kind of a new direction for this game so that it'll be, imagine if they had a huge Marvel game like this be included as part of Apple Arcade and Google Play Pass. That would bring a lot of people to those platforms and presumably make people a lot of money in a different way. Now, it's hard to contend with the success of Contest of Champions, so, and Kabam knows what they're doing. They know this space very well. But I just read a report today, actually, that, one of the big things that a lot of free-to-play game makers have to do in mobile is they spend a fortune to convert on people playing their games. And it's going to get harder and harder, especially as we get into much more subscription territory across all the different platforms. So we'll see what happens there, but I am excited for Kabam and can't wait to see this game. They haven't shown off gameplay. They've really just sort of teased it with a cut sequence, but guys know I'm in, man. I like Marvel characters. All right, well, now with the Joker movie hitting theaters today, DC hasn't forgotten about their other supervillains. The new animated series Harley Quinn, focusing on who else? Harley Quinn, will premiere November 29th on the DC Universe streaming platform. The show will follow Harley after she breaks up with the Joker and forms her own version of the Legion of Doom, and there will be plenty of other DC characters like the Riddler and, yes, Batman. However, despite the colorful animation, it is not kid-friendly and promises to have its fair share of violence and profanity. Now, over on the big screen, a similar version of Harley Quinn stars in the new movie Birds of Prey, which is due out in February. I like the trailer, but I definitely got some Suicide Squad vibes off of it. I mean, it's Margot Robbie reprising a role. I hope it isn't. I hope it's not trash like Suicide Squad was. That was an insufferable film, and I hope it's nothing like that. I hope that there's a lot more cohesion and the characters get moments where we get to, know who they are and care about them. I think Margot Robbie is sensational. I think she does a great job as Harley. I think Harley is a fantastic character. I think DC and Warner Brothers are right to try to create separation from Joker. She's not just arm candy for Joker, right? She's got her own thing. And that's what these creators have got to kind of drill into and really kind of shine the spotlight on, make this character stand on her own. And I think that they will. And I have my fingers crossed for the Birds of Prey movie. I think the animated thing is probably going to do very well because DC and Warner Brothers have an amazing track record with animated stuff. Birds of Prey, I'm a little skeptical about, but hopeful, very hopeful. And that's how I'm going to end this rundown, with a sense of hopefulness. Thank you for watching that. Now, let's take a look at this day and everything cool. Welcome to This Day and Everything Cool for October 4th. On this day in 1957, the human race created our first light in the night sky. The Russian satellite Sputnik launched into low orbit from a base in Kazakhstan, becoming the first satellite in Earth's history, not counting natural satellites like the moon, of course. Sputnik was actually a pretty simple device. It was just a 23-inch metal sphere with 4 radio antennas that could transmit signals back to Earth, but despite its humble size and appearance, Sputnik changed the world. The fact that the Russians had managed to launch a satellite into orbit and keep it there was seen as a major blow to their biggest Cold War rival, the United States. This forced the U.S. to double down on their own space program, which kicked off the space race of the 50s and 60s, with both countries struggling to stay ahead of the other for dominance in the skies. This obviously created more animosity between the two, but as a benefit, it also spurred an unprecedented advancement in science. As for Sputnik, it orbited for 3 weeks until its onboard batteries died and stayed in orbit silently for another 2 months before drifting back to Earth. It burnt up in the atmosphere on January 4th, 1958. Hey, now, before we started the show today, I went off and saw Joker. This is the new DC movie that's out in theaters. It's the origin story of a supervillain that we know and love. I would say the best supervillain ever created, but you can argue with me on that in the comments below. But Joker is a fascinating character who has been embodied by incredible performers like Jack Nicholson and, of course, Heath Ledger, Cesar Romero, for any longtime Bat fans out there. But here is Joaquin Phoenix stepping into the role, and this is a powerhouse character study of a new Joker, a Joker that goes by the real-life name of Arthur Fleck, who lives with his mother and has Penny Fleck, and she's actually played by the mom from 6 Feet Under, and she's terrific. But Arthur has mental illness, and he's got a lot of difficulties kind of dealing with the world around him. He's found a terrible job, a bottom-of-the-barrel type of job as a clown who spins signs on the street, and during one of his terrible days, he gets beat up by terrible kids who break his sign and sort of threaten his livelihood. And that's kind of the tone of the film from the get-go. Todd Phillips is the director, and he's worked with an incredible creative team to make this movie just look like something out of time. It looks like a really darker shade of what Richard Donner was able to do in the 70s with Superman. And when he shot Superman the movie in New York City and we got Metropolis, it wasn't a shining jewel of a town. It was kind of a dingy New York back then because they were shooting it in the 70s. And this feels, even though it's Gotham and it's New York playing Gotham, this feels like it's, the other side of the coin. It's set in the 80s. Even the old sort of retro Warner Brothers logo sets up the whole thing. But the city does feel like it's living and breathing, and it's just a horrible place to live. It really feels like the city is creating Arthur Fleck and creating Joker, and he gets beat down through the whole movie. Now I'm trying to beat around, I'm not going to spoil this thing. I'm trying to sort of dance around specific plot points, but just know that Joker, and you can tell in the trailers, he gets just brutalized in this film. And as he is, and as things get taken away from him, and he starts to kind of unravel a little bit and made fun of, he kind of digs into his past and where he comes from. And so we get a really, really good sense as to why the Joker comes into being. And it's incredibly effective. It's like we crawl into this character's head and we're in there. It's unnerving, it's uncomfortable, it's very raw, and Joaquin Phoenix is basically on screen for the whole thing. It's all from his perspective, and you can almost feel the psychological punches and the physical punches all the way through. And it's quite harrowing. It's humorless, which is a bit, it fits the character. But it kind of takes the joy out of watching the film a little bit, too. It's really hard to watch this movie. It's hard to watch a person just stripped so raw and become so psychotic. You can understand why a character has elevated to this level of psychosis and does the horrible things that he does in the movie. You can understand because they have done everything they can in the script to kind of make this such a tragic tale. But it's hard to watch, because we've not really seen a Joker like this. We saw echoes of this with Heath Ledger's performance. We saw little glimmers of what may have sort of befallen him to become this villain that we knew in that movie. But we weren't living in his shoes. And in this movie, we're living in his shoes. Which, for me, as a longtime Bat fan, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was actually quite wonderful, and it made me, reminisce and think back to the comics of certainly Frank Miller's work, but I kept thinking of the Neil Adams Batman books that I just loved and adored, that were all written in the 70s and illustrated by the incomparable Neil Adams. There was an authenticity and a realism, a naturalism. Todd Phillips is definitely looking for that Scorsese kind of vibe. There's irony that Robert De Niro has a pretty substantial role in this film, but you half expect that Al Pacino is going to turn a corner and be somebody as well. It just fits that whole Dog Day Afternoon, Taxi Driver, and certainly the comedy. What's the comedy movie, Blake? Yeah, the King of Comedy movie. I loved all of the building blocks with all of this, even though I was I was riveted. But I left the theater moved by the film, and it's powerful, and the world that I walked out into felt darker because of this movie. But I don't think it's a perfect movie. I don't think it's as powerful for me as what Nolan did with Batman Begins, and especially with The Dark Knight. Partially because Batman's not in there. We get allusions to it, and I think you could probably guess that. But I feel like the crescendo of the film really is tied up into some pivotal scenes that happen between Robert De Niro's character and Joaquin Phoenix. You don't hire Robert De Niro and not use him in some big stuff. And I felt that it was a little contrived. It felt a little less real and gritty and authentic. It felt like it was a platform given to this moment, and it kind of took me out of it. You could see all the machinations and all of the plot devices and all the characters being pushed aside so that this moment could happen, and I was like, okay, that feels a little artificial, even though all the beats to get us to there felt kind of authentic and real. So I think that this movie is controversial. I think that it is definitely pointing the spotlight and the camera at some really heavy sort of storytelling moments around mental illness. It will certainly make you think about, people that you may know in your life or people that you may pass on the street that are dealing with things. And, it's heavy. It's really heavy. It does sort of open the door to why Batman would come into this world too. And I don't want to get into spoilery stuff, but that was pretty epic for me because it felt like if this Joker felt like that, what would the Batman in this world feel like? And yeah, it's very good. Be prepared though, man. It is not like the superhero movies. This is a supervillain movie, and this supervillain is dark and very, very psychotic. I'm going to give Joker a 9 out of 10. All right, we are moving on right now to a buried treasure. Let's go. So a little while ago, I was obsessed with Sega Genesis games because the Sega Genesis Mini came out, and I asked people what games should have been included on the device, and I kept hearing Rocket Knight Adventures over and over and over again. Now, I'm familiar with the game, although I hadn't really played it, or at least maybe I played it for a little while, but I hadn't really dived into the Sega Genesis version of the game. It's terrific, but that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about Rocket Knight, which came out in 2010. It was developed by Climax and published by Konami, and it's a sequel to the Rocket Knight Adventures that came out back in the day. It uses polygonal graphics. It's a 2.5D platformer, and it's terrific. It's really, really fun. You've got some pretty powerful mechanics right out of the get-go. Of course, you're a possum with a big sword and a very cool suit. But most importantly, you've got a kick-ass jetpack, and it allows you to bounce off of all kinds of walls, shoot up to platforms that might be hovering out of sight. It'll help you in boss attacks, and it'll help you, honestly, in some really cool flying missions, which evoke a lot of the classic Konami scrolling space shooters that they made back in the day. I was just really pleasantly surprised. It was great to kind of refresh my memory playing the original Rocket Knight Adventures, but Rocket Knight for the more recent machines, although it's already been almost 10 years since this game came out, was really damn solid. This is a character that I think stands pretty close to the mascot characters that we've seen, especially from Sega, like Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know if Rocket Knight is quite up there with Mario, but he's certainly lovable, and he's certainly worth re-exploring. And Konami, if you are watching this, or anybody that works at Konami is watching this, bring us a new Rocket Knight game. The character is fantastic. This whole jetpack mechanic adds another layer to maneuvering past the obstacles of a level, but also dealing with all of the bad guys. When you've got a jetpack and a sword and you can fly forward, it just makes you feel really tough, and you're quite the badass. That may be a bit of a mark against this game because it doesn't feel very difficult, especially when you're just starting out playing the game. You feel like maybe a little overpowered, but it's so fun. That's the core. This is a very, very fun game. I found it in my Steam library, but you can also pick this up as part of the Xbox One backwards compatibility. There's an Xbox 360 version of this game. It came out on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. I don't know if it's in PlayStation now, but likely it will be if you can find it in the other stores. It's absolutely worth checking out, and hopefully you can find it for one of the platforms that you have. Rocket Knight from 2010 is a buried treasure. Yeah, Rocket Knight rocks, and it is pretty fun to play the Genesis version as well. And whatever Konami can do to bring back some of those awesome games from the past. Time Pilot, that's for Abby Jameson out there. Listen, we're going to get into Let's Play and Chat. We're going to be playing some Ghostbusters very soon, and I know people want to talk about Joker. I'm going to do my best not to spoil anything, but if you have any questions about anything, just hit me up, help me out with all caps in there. Yeah, I can see people buzzing about it, and somebody joking about how the movie is going to twist my mind. I don't know, man. That's a touchy subject. Let's talk about some of that stuff in a little bit, but right now let's take a look at a review of Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Man, I feel like such a wimp shielding myself from the rain and shooting out here in the park, you know, with my camera after playing many, many hours of the game where the protagonist has to go through sheer living hell. I've been playing Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and I've been playing a character named Nomad.
My call sign's Nomad.
Who truly is a nomad. I've been playing solo in this game, but you can play cooperatively and you can play PvP, and I haven't done any of that. I've really just played a little bit with Blake, but for the most part, I've been playing on my own, and I've been out in this harsh wilderness, this fictional wilderness, where it's raining sometimes, and it's windy all the time, and everybody wants to kill me. It's incredibly dangerous. It's a world populated by technology. There is this evil, I'm going to put evil in quotations, genius who has crafted all kinds of cool technology across this island wilderness that you're in. So you see a lot of electric vehicles and these sort of high-tech kind of encampments, lots of drones flying everywhere. And they've been usurped, as we all know, because everybody knows that Jon Bernthal is in this game. He came out famously at E3. He's such an awesome actor. Honestly, he's terrific in this game. He's really fun to watch. He's fun to watch him whatever the hell he does. You know, he's amazing.
I've had enough.
He is very menacing, and he's surrounded by a bunch of other mercenaries and goons for hire that you have to kill as Nomad. And slowly but surely, you start to realize that this island has some people that you can rely on. The island is called Aroa, and there are some homesteaders in there that are hiding in caves and stuff. So you start to kind of understand that there are different factions and different kinds of people that you can assist, and some will give you intel. And you have a mission board, which is a lot like detective movies that we've seen with strings and everything, and with all kinds of intel that you got to go and collect. You're finding intel at computers, you're finding intel from people that you meet in the right place, magazines and pamphlets that you'll pick up. So there's a bit of a mystery here that you have to solve, but you know the drill. This is another massive open world experience akin to what we played in Wildlands, but it's different this time if you play it solo because you're alone. And so it felt a lot more, as I was playing it, like, you know, Metal Gear Solid 5 in some ways. Definitely got some connections to Breath of the Wild, where you're just playing as Link and you've got this vast, enormous wilderness to explore. There's a lot of that, although not as tuned and not as awe-inspiring and beatific and well-crafted. It's also got echoes of stuff that we've seen in Red Dead Redemption. I think that the storytelling has definitely been cranked up quite a bit by the UB team in Paris that worked on this game. Cut sequences, especially if you're going to hire an actor like Jon Bernthal, you know, you got to make everybody look a lot better in the game. So the cut sequences are better, they're more impactful, they're more fun to just sit back and watch. I found the hoorah attitude of Wildlands, you know, a little off-putting, and it's just so generic and just, I don't know, I tuned out after a while.
You fucking worm.
I haven't tuned out of Ghost Recon Breakpoint, but I've only put in about 15 hours into this game. I've leveled up quite a bit, but I've also leveled up in my equipment, and that's the other sort of connection to Breath of the Wild. You're constantly, or Diablo, or Destiny, or The Division, feels a lot like The Division. You're constantly changing out your loadout. So you're finding new pants, you're finding new gloves. You could almost, you know, subtitle this game Drones and Knee Pads, which I think Ubisoft has a fascination with drones and knee pads. They're in a lot of their games. That is honestly an element here that is a bit disappointing, is that this feels very familiar. It feels like Wildlands, and it feels like The Division, and it feels like the open-endedness of Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed. But I still had a good time, and I think it's this focus on this solitary experience, for me, that's made it more enjoyable. I've had some frustration, definitely, as I've been playing. There's definitely moments where you're dropped a million miles away from your objective. I've also been stuck on an objective, which is really forcing me to lean into the idea of bringing in other people to help me get past this. I've got to stop this convoy and get this sergeant and interview him, and I've got him. I've got to him, but just as I do, it's always around a damn base. So, you know, the drones catch me, and then there's all kinds of reinforcements that come after me, which is exhilarating, but also frustrating when you just want to progress past it. So I feel like I'm going to have to ask somebody to come in, or a couple people to come in and help me defeat that, which isn't a bad thing. And I honestly want to keep playing the game, which is a good thing. I am enjoying my way through. There is a little rinse and repeat. And, you know, even though I got stuck on that one mission, I was able to go off on other missions where I'm basically, you know, interrogating other people to find other targets.
All right, asshole. I'm gonna ask this once and only once. Where's Walker?
They're leading me to different people on the board, and I'm taking them out. It has a great tactility. You know, I like the movements. I like the animations. It's satisfying. The enemies fall quickly, which is good because you know, there are tougher ones as well, and there's certainly areas that you don't want to enter into because you're not, you know, equipped or you're not rated high enough so you can go into those areas, which is great, and the warning signs come up. The drones are frightening as hell because you don't, sometimes they just sort of erupt to life if you come too close. I do like the stealthiness of the game. I like being able to go into prone mode and get my sniper rifle out, but also to camouflage myself as drones are coming over. I feel like, you know, they made the last game in Bolivia, and there was a lot of work and effort to kind of craft a world that felt very real and authentic, and they did a great job with the environments. But I think they're removed from reality here and sort of the juxtaposition of the future elements, and then every once in a while you find some cool ruins and things like that you're passing through. There is a lot of interesting world building in this title. I think by freeing themselves up from trying to place it and localize it to a place that really exists, gave the developers a little bit more room to imagine and to explore. I also dig this mixture of technology in this natural world. I think it's pretty cool, including the tech that you have. I mean, you've got sensor bombs that you can shoot into the area and it'll pulse and you can see where everybody is. You've got a drone that will help you out. You play alone this time. You don't play with AI buddies like you did in Wildlands. So you've got these drones that you can shoot up and they will do the sync shot, which is kind of a standard deal with Ghost Recon games. You also have an assortment of weaponry, submachine guns and light machine guns, assault rifles, shotguns, handguns. I really defaulted to putting scopes on because the world is so big, and standing back and being as dangerous and effective with a sniper rifle as I could. I also put suppressors on everything, and I painted up the guns in the gunsmith mode. You know, I tracked on this very realistic feeling tactical map that was confusing as hell because, of course, it's loaded with, you know, all kinds of places to discover, all of these little objective markers. But then I started to understand that you need to unlock the bivouacs, which are, you can see them across the landscape. They have little smoke clouds coming up. You've got to unlock all of those so you can fast travel quite a bit. And you also want to try to keep the vehicles handy, and the choppers are definitely much appreciated in this game because there is such a massive world to explore. And it is a drag when you have to hoof it, and it's a drag when you've got, you know, a mountain that you just feels like, oh my God, which way do I go? If I go that way, I'm going to be climbing forever. I go that way, I'm going to be falling. Or if I go that, so it feels a bit of a drag that you're like, oh my God. And then I have gotten stuck in the geometry, and I've had to reload at a previous, like fast travel to another bivouac. You know, it's not perfect, but I have been having a good time playing this game.
You're done. You have wasted too much of my fucking time as it is.
It's fun. I've been having a good time. It's not a perfect experience, but I have been having a good time, and I will keep playing this. I'll have a further kind of thought on this, especially after I've played some online, because I feel like the game is really asking, you can play it totally alone, but I think it's really asking you in a, you know, a fair way to play with your pals. You know, that's what all the marketing is all about. So I think I need to experience that. And the one thing I will say as well, there is a store in here. There are microtransactions. There are ways that you can kind of spend to speed up some of the stuff in here and some of the unlocks, which is a total pain in the ass.
It didn't have to go down that way.
I haven't felt the pull to do any of that. I've just avoided it. It's a drag. It's a reality in modern game making. I think with all of the subscription stuff that's coming, though, we're probably going to start to see a lot of that phase out. I dig this game, though. I've been having fun. From what I've played so far, I'm going to give Breakpoint a 7.5 out of 10. Okay. All right, we are back, and yes, Breakpoint is definitely addictive, and maybe I'll play with some of you when I get back on there. My friend Doug Minty is here. He bought a shirt.
Yes.
While he's here at the VFS Cafe. Doug, it's fantastic to see you. Fantastic
pleasure.
To meet you. You traveled all the way from Toronto.
I did.
Just to be on EP.
Just to be here.
Which is amazing. That's so
yeah.
cool. That's so rad. Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem.
Thanks for your years of support.
Oh, yeah.
You used to watch us on TV.
All the time.
And now you watch us on the YouTubes.
Of course.
Watch our rundowns.
Oh, yes.
All the stuff.
Every day.
That's dope, man. We are playing Ghostbusters today, and I understand that you played this before.
Yes.
Like a lot of us out there. It's the de facto Ghostbusters 3, so you can press start. It's the de facto Ghostbusters 3 because the late and great Harold Ramis is in there, Bill Murray's in there, Dan Aykroyd's in there, and Ernie Johnson is in there, and lots of other... Ernie Hudson. Sorry, Ernie Hudson. Love you, buddy. But they're all in there, and they're very well represented. It's got a great comedic tone to it, and of course everything has been HDified, so it looks a little bit better. Doug's going to play that, but you guys know the deal. This is Let's Play and Chat, so if you've got any questions or any comments, go ahead and throw them out. I'm going to fill Ernie Johnson, I love Inside the NBA from Illmatic662. I'm going to throw one out to Abby Jameson, who I gave a shout out to before because I enjoyed the Rocket Knight Redux that happened in 2010. I talked about it in Buried Treasure, and I said, we need all those old classic Konami games back, better than that terrible Contra game. And I brought up Time Pilot, which I know you're a fan of, as well as I am, Abby. I don't know why people are sleeping on Time Pilot. It's an amazing game. Was it? Oh. Well, they did a much better job. Blake just told me that some of the Contra people worked on Rocket Knight. Oh, the original Rocket Knight Adventures. Oh, okay. So when Contra was good on the Genesis, they also were really good when they made Rocket Knight Adventures back then. Hey, I live in Toronto. Wow, Doug traveled a long way. That's a huge fan. That's from Christopher Keach. Where are you, Christopher? Come on.
Christopher. Come on, buddy.
Doug is repping right here. He's showing up. Come on, Toronto. Come on out. Come and hang with us in Vancouver. It only rains 90% of the time out here during the fall. No, but it keeps us green, so we need it. We got a question from SamIam111. Do you remember the Ghostbusters multiplayer modes from the original release? If so, what were your favorite modes? I played it solo. That's the tough thing, right? Like I play a lot of these games solo because I can't I have to review them, so I can't really. I get the games early and I got to review them, so I don't always play them online or with other people. But that would be awesome. I don't know if there is even multiplayer in the new game. I haven't gotten deep enough into it. No multiplayer. It's all solo. It's a really cool game though. Visually, really, really cool, especially when you're blasting with your plasma beams and all that stuff. Don't cross the streams. How does this compare to the PC version from Rotten Tanuki? Have not checked it out on the PC. I just have the Xbox One code. Blake, have you been playing it on the Switch? Okay, how did it look on the Switch? It looks oh yeah, Blake always plays the Switch in portable mode, and he says it looks pretty good on the Switch. I haven't seen it on the Switch. Question from Jeff Meacham. Do you know if Robert Downey Jr. is going to be in the new Black Widow movie? That's what I heard. Yeah, I heard that he's back in the Black Widow movie. I think that we are never not going to see these original actors pop up again and again in the MCU. They're leaving a story arc. They're not leaving the franchise. And here's what else is going to freak you guys out. We know that they've all been digitized, and so digital versions of these actors will pop up when the real actors can't show up and they're too busy doing something else. So they're going to be in there all the time. Didn't they do that with Natalie Portman? They put her into Avengers Endgame, but it was digital. Like she didn't really show up for a day, but she ended up somewhere. I don't know. Okay. Oh my God, my brother played with my uncle's gun and shot our family dog by accident. My dad is going to kill him. What should we do? I don't know what's happening here. This is a weird comment on the day that I reviewed Joker. That's weird. Question, Vic, do you know if... oh, that was Robert Downey Jr. Okay. Play this version or 8-bit Ghostbusters? Stuart Leckie is asking that. I haven't played the 8-bit Ghostbusters, but I kept getting comments on the Sega Genesis mini videos that we did that Ghostbusters should have been on that machine as well, so I checked out the Sega Genesis version of Ghostbusters. Cool. Super cool game. Ghostbusters is such a great franchise for video game adaptation that there should be tons of these types of games. I really am hopeful that next year's movie is going to rock. I think that's what this is all about too, right? Bringing this back to kind of keep the Ghostbusters love alive. But hopefully the new movie is going to be amazing. Let's see. Sex Zed says, nice, I need EPN swag. You can come to the cafe and you can buy it right here in person.
Oh, yeah.
Which Doug just did. Or you can pick something up on Teespring or Design by Humans. We have a shop on Design by Humans, and I think we have a T-shirt elephant shop as well. But yeah, we've got shirts and we've got coffee, which you can actually pick up I think the coffee is the only thing. And we partnered with our buds at 8-Bit Beans for, this is weird, it's the home shopping channel right now. But we partnered with our buds at 8-Bit Beans on the Espresso Playground, and you can buy bags of the coffee on Amazon, which is pretty rad. And they made an 8-bit version of me. I don't know if you've ever seen that, it's all surreal. Okay, let's see. Ghostbusters is filming in Calgary. One day it was pretty close to me. That's from Forchi Forchi. That is cool, man. It's Ivan Reitman working with his son, right? On Ghostbusters, I believe. And there's some Canadianness in that family, and of course Dan Aykroyd lives in is it Kitchener, Ontario?
Is he in Kitchener?
Yeah, which is cool. It's great that there's a Canadian Ghostbusters thing. Connection that way. Comment from Abby Jameson: the real Ghostbusters 2 is the NES game that should be played. It is by it's the real one. Okay, and it's by Hal. Okay, I got to check that out. I don't have a very big NES collection. There was no EP back then, so I got, my story with NES is I got it in like '88 or it might have been '89, and I thought, oh, this is fantastic. And then the Genesis came out with all of its marketing. I'm like, oh my God, that's arcade quality. Forget the NES. I'm playing on the Genesis, so I started to really get back into games in a big way with the Genesis. Audrey Leon met Ernie Hudson at the local Comic-Con in 2015. I heard he's a wonderful guy. I bet you we have had him on EP in some capacity. I don't remember personally having a conversation with him. I may have, but I heard he's fantastic. Let's see what else we got in here. Sex Zed says he hasn't played Ghostbusters since Nintendo days. Well, you can play Ghostbusters on Nintendo Switch now. They should do, I say this all the time, but all of these licensed games, they just sort of sit in purgatory. They're just like out there because of whatever deals all these companies have done, but there's so many classic titles based around properties like this that are like nowhere to be seen, and like if you're going to re-release an HD version of this, why not have some of those old classic games be available on some of the stores? They would all run on Steam. I don't get it. I don't understand why companies don't think long-term with a lot of this stuff. Ryoga 316 says, do you plan to review River City Girls in the future? I don't know. I have hovered over it, but I've been slammed with a bunch of different games. Stuff is coming up. I'm going to be reviewing this. I've got the Mario and Sonic at the Winter Games, the Olympic game coming pretty soon. I've got a game called Warsaw that I'm going to be looking at. I'm looking at the new Grid. I'm looking at Trine 4, and of course some of the biggies like Call of Duty 4 are coming out. So my calendar and my schedule is getting filled up with games. And River City Girls came out a little while ago. Maybe before the end of the year, I'll have time to go back and check out some of these games that I haven't had time to hit, and that's one of them. Single-player PUBG is a better comparison than Breath of the Wild. Yeah, yes, for sure. He's talking about my Ghost Recon comment. That's Forchi Forchi again. I feel like Breath of the Wild has infiltrated everybody's psyche, and everybody that's making games right now is kind of thinking about the emergent gameplay that's a part of that title. And I think there was an aspiration to provide some of that in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I'd love to be able to play the Aliens or Bucky O'Hare arcade games on modern platforms. A.B. Jameson with some great callbacks. That's awesome. Liquor Run, question, I'm in a gaming rut, Vic. Any advice on how to get my passion back? I'm a lifelong gamer and I need something to get it back. My game list queue is in the hundreds and I can't get into anything. I will be dead honest with you. Because I go through that too. Like sometimes it's just, especially after a massive game, like last year when we played, both Johnny and I were talking about this. We loved Breath of the Wild so much. They're both our favorite games of all time. It's my favorite game, it's his favorite game. It's my daughter's favorite game. It should be yours if you haven't played it. Play Breath of the Wild. So if you're in a gaming rut and haven't played that, there's your answer right there. That's take 2 of those and call me in the morning. But what I've discovered is the cartridge games are an amazing entree. Like they're a fantastic way to get back onto the freeway of digging games again and to appreciate the roots of the business and to really kind of dig into the fact that people were starting to discover what made video games connect with us, especially for the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. So if you're in a rut, and you want to play games and just have fun with them again, I would say pick up something like the Sega Genesis Mini, or the Mini NES or Super Nintendo consoles if you don't have those already, or splurge and buy the analog systems that I've reviewed and talked about, the Mega SG or the Super NT, and then find some of those carts and go to some classic shops and go and meet weirdos that have been collecting these games and will sell them in paper bags to you, like I have done. Like get on eBay and Craigslist and say, I want to meet you at the mall, and I'm going to give you some money, and you're going to give me some cartridges in a paper bag. I can't believe I've done that. It's like a drug deal, but for nerds. And I brought my kid along on these deals where two middle-aged dudes are meeting, and I'm like handing them fistfuls of cash, and I get some old carts. But it's a wonderful experience because it harkens back to when games had nothing else except fun. You know, now there's a lot of other, crazy. Stuff attached to games. There's all of these little extra bits and the always online and the constant patching and, for every game that launches, there's like 1,000 YouTube channels complaining about it now, so that's kind of the world that we're in right now. The other thing that I would actually recommend you checking out is Apple Arcade. Believe it or not, it's pretty damn great, and the games are very easy to jump into.
Vic, one quick question. Like, how is Google's version of Apple?
I haven't checked that out yet.
I
would imagine that they're doing the very same kinds of deals that Apple is. That's a great question. I definitely am going to check out the Google stuff for sure.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's got, I think, an even bigger library than Apple Arcade. But I hope people are investing in these subscription services, and letting them sort of breathe a little bit, because that's going to turn into more investment and some more risk-taking at a different kind of level, like not the go bankrupt level, like if your game isn't a hit, then we got to fire everybody kind of level, which the rest of the industry kind of sort of hums along at. Apple Arcade might be sustainable, and I don't know. I don't know all the economics on it. I mean, it all depends on the subscription. The history of games isn't respected nearly enough, which seems odd to me that it's one of the most immersive mediums. Abby, you're so correct. A former colleague of ours named Martin Ray, who ran the AIAS, the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences, and put on the DICE event.
Oh, no.
Fantastic guy. I was thinking about him last night, and I haven't talked to him in a while. He actually jump-started Season 3 of Electric Playground back in the day, and one of my greatest friends and mentors in my world. But he said years ago, when he was leaving AIAS, he signed up to work at a VR company, that the games industry doesn't do enough to help kind of elevate the story around itself. Talk about the artistry involved in creating this, the creative ambition. I mean, that's what EP was based on, and he believed in EP, and he helped to, push EP forward based on a lot of those philosophies. But yes, you're absolutely true. You're absolutely correct about that. And as amazing as things like the Sega Mini are, it would also be incredible to have lots of interviews with all of the people that worked on all that stuff. Did you crash this?
I died.
It's a hard.
Those candle guys got me.
This is as far as I got. By
Okay,
the way.
good. Yeah.
You gave me a nice, powerful, quiet moment.
I know.
Which was great.
Yeah.
Vic, do I know when Iron Man VR is coming out? Yes, Jeff Meacham. It is coming out February 28th, 2020. So you have to get The Last of Us 2 finished by then, because that's out on the 20th. 2020 is starting off with a bang. Comment from Adrian Leon. I was hoping you would like Dragon Quest XI S better than the original version. Glad to hear it. Yeah, it's amazing. What a that's how you port a game to the Switch right there. That's proof positive. I was shocked at how good looking Dragon Quest XI S looked on the Switch. I was not prepared for that. It's a beautiful game. It was crazy to be playing that. I didn't say this in my Breakout review, or Breakpoint review. It was crazy to be reviewing that and Ni no Kuni, both amazing at the same time, and then a completely different game with Breakpoint. It was also a great palate cleanser to go to Breakpoint and have sniper rifles and military gear and a scumbag John Bernthal hitting people in the shins and torture sequences. Like, okay, this is different, and I enjoyed that. And also I still am playing a lot of Sayonara Wild Hearts, which I don't think enough people are talking about. I my nephew and my daughter go to the same school, and I take them into class in the morning into the school together. And my nephew arrives a bit early, and so he comes and we sit down, and I'm always reviewing games, and I'm showing him new games all the time. So lucky kid, right? But he saw Sayonara Wild Hearts, and it blew his mind, and he keeps asking me to play that game even though I've reviewed it. But we do go back to it. And we were almost late for school the other day because we got completely obsessed with how cool it is. So check out Sayonara Wild Hearts. It's one of the ones on Apple Arcade, but it's on every other platform right now too. So good. From Warco A, we have a question. Which subscriptions do you think will resonate the most with gamers? Maybe a top 5 subscription on EPN. Maybe that's a Rocket and Reagan award. Here's what I have been thinking about subscriptions, all right? I don't want to sound like I'm jumping on a bandwagon here because a lot has to be proved out. First and foremost, the developers need to be getting paid, and they need to be able to sustain themselves, and they need to be pushed into a creative zone so that these games are good and getting better. So that's the most important thing. But what we are entering into with subscription, we've had fantastic success with consoles since the Atari 2600. You know, they've penetrated into, I said the word penetrate, you guys are all snickering right now, but they've penetrated into millions of homes. And maybe we get into that 100 million home kind of thing with the PlayStation 4 or the NES or the, you know, we get into that kind of bracket. What we're dealing here with subscription, though, is the propensity to get into billions of homes or a billion homes, hundreds of millions of homes. You know, there are billions of Google devices out there on all the time that could download the Google Play Pass games. And same thing goes with Apple Arcade. Now, these games are not supposed to be the free-to-play model where it's about obsessiveness and trying to catch the whales and trying to sell you the currencies to keep you going and come checking in every day. These are games that have a start, a middle, and an end, and they're crafted to be just complete escapes. Same kind of thing goes with Stadia. They have a lot to prove. We don't know anything about it. It's shocking that it's coming up so quickly, but presumably with the right marketing power and the right partnerships so that everybody's internet speeds are perfect, these services will eventually get into millions and then hundreds of millions and then potentially, because you're going to be able to play these games wherever. You're not limited by having to go, like, I think one of the biggest crying shames in the video game, in the history of games, is the fact that Spider-Man, which is an amazing PlayStation 4 exclusive, it's a crying damn shame that it's a PlayStation 4 exclusive. If there is one video game on Earth that every person should play because of the amount of awareness of the character and the success of the MCU, it's Insomniac's Spider-Man game. And I think it's just a total shame that anybody that invested and took the bet that Xbox was going to deliver awesome stuff in this generation, they're completely shut out of the opportunity to play Spider-Man unless they spend a few $100s and get a PlayStation 4. And that's what we're moving into, you know? The minute we get, and I also believe that it's going to be PlayStation 4, God of War, Last of Us, Gears of War 5. It'll be that caliber of game that is going to be made for streaming services and paid for to be made for streaming services, just like we're seeing incredibly expensive shows on Disney Plus and Netflix and stuff. We're going to see incredibly expensive, high-profile games, you know, hitting Stadia and hit the exclusive to Stadia, and but exclusive is going to really mean something different very soon. In order to get people to have these water cooler moments around video games, and that is going to be amazing. Like a game at the fidelity and the impact of Spider-Man that you don't have to think about where you're going to play it. That's what the industry needs. That's what the industry needs to move to, you know, a new stratosphere. You know, because then from there it's like that is the norm. Right now it's like that is a rare thing that happens. But once we cross a certain amount of threshold there, we're gonna put it this way, we have 23 Marvel movies, and we have movies based on characters. Shang-Chi, I don't know anything about Shang-Chi. I knew a little bit about Black Panther. It became a billion-plus sensation. You know, we have all of these different movies being generated around these characters that we are getting introduced to for the first time, but we don't have games specific to each individual character or anything close to that are at the level of Spider-Man. And why not? We should. I think a huge chunk of the reasoning behind that is because the distribution is very limited. It's very sort of buttoned down, and we're about to kind of open a door to that not being the case very soon. All right, question from Raiders 7528. What's the likelihood that The Last of Us 2 gets a PlayStation 5 port? If so, should I wait for the superior experience? Well, I'll tell you this. Now that we know the date of Last of Us 2, we're not going to hear anything about PlayStation 5 until after that ships for the PlayStation 4, because they're going to want to sell as many as they can to the existing install base, which is fine. And Last of Us was one of the last PlayStation 3 experiences. It has a vastly superior remaster available for the PlayStation 4, which I think is a free game this month, actually. I think it's on PlayStation Plus. You can get it for free. So we will definitely get Last of Us 2 on PlayStation 5, and it will definitely be better. And I think we're also going to get Spider-Man, and we're also going to get... Well, first of all, they'll be backwards compatible, but there will be benefits to playing classic games on the new machine. These things are so precious. These experiences are so precious to Sony. Like, they're valuable properties, and they're going to figure out a way to monetize on them more, likely through subscription, likely through PlayStation Now. I think they're going to get really aggressive with PlayStation Now. And so those games will be available to be played on other platforms, which is great. Question from Liquor Run. Which upcoming game do you think will be your next Breath of the Wild? Oh, man. Breath of the Wild 2. I don't know. I wasn't expecting Breath of the Wild to be that, you know? I didn't think it was going to be a Miyazaki movie that I could play. You know, it was profound. Maybe something in the Batman Arkham space is coming. You know, Rocksteady's been busy, and Warner Brothers Montreal. That was my favorite. That's my favorite franchise or trilogy, you know, or quadrilogy, because I love Origins as well. I love those games. It'd be great to see an Uncharted that sort of goes into this open world kind of space as well. Now that Naughty Dog is wrapping up and they can pivot to the next thing. I don't know, man, but that is definitely going to inspire a lot of really cool games, not least of which is whatever Nintendo's got cooking too. If rumors are to be believed, PlayStation 5 will be backwards compatible with PlayStation 4 games. Stuart Leckie, I'm sure they will do that. Question, I'm still confident that Split Second 2 is still coming out. Do I think that? 76 Demon 67? No. I can't talk about it. Okay, they should start getting. I don't think it's coming out. It'd be great if it did. I love that game, and I love the people that we did the making of that game. We worked with BlackRock. We went out to. I think they were in Guildford, Brighton. They're in Brighton. We spent time with those guys. Company's disbanded, but that property is just sitting there. There's so many great franchises. Abby Jameson is 100% correct. We make a game in this business and we just move on. Actually, why we didn't have a show on Wednesday is I was rehearsing for an event that I just did here at VFS last night, and it was it's called the Pitch and Play, where we wrap up the student demos, all the games that all these younger people have worked on, and they show them off. It was great, fun night, great games. There was a twin-stick shooter there, and I asked all the developers, had you ever heard of Eugene Jarvis, or had you played Smash TV or Robotron? None of them had. And it was like a dagger in my heart. But that is not their fault. That is the fault of the video game industry letting that story just disappear. You know, the fact that there isn't a Smash TV in the political world that we're in right now is insane. I mean, Smash TV is more appropriate in 2019 than it is as a game that kind of riffed on what the Running Man did 20, 30 years ago. It's an amazing game. I don't know if you guys remember it too, as well, but it's amazing. And Robotron is the creator of, through Eugene Jarvis, he created dual stick shooting with Robotron, also incredible. Okay, has Vic ever been in a game cameo? Yes, I've done a few things. One of them was NHL Hits. I love doing that. So if there are any developers that are building something and want to reach out, please do. I do dig doing voiceover stuff like that. It's really fun. The truth, how do I feel about Bob Iger admitting that they backstabbed George Lucas? It was kind of heartbreaking. I saw all the comments on that. Actually, I forget the guy's name. He's got a great movie review channel. He's got super tall hair. He's like his black hair in a pompadour kind of thing. Jeremy something. He did a great video, and I acknowledged it.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Jeremy Johns? Is that
Something like that. He's got. I don't know the hair.
Well,
I watch him too.
Yeah, he did a thing on George Lucas, and it was very heartfelt. And I thought this was great. This was a very big departure from his usual, super fast movie reviews, which are good too. But I thought he was bang on. I thought it was, duplicitous. And sneaky, but Lucas made his billions, and he made lots of poor decisions. His biggest, poor decision that Lucas made is he surrounded himself with people that would just say, "You're a genius. Every idea you have is perfect." He never had the pushback. And you watch the unbelievably revealing behind-the-scenes stuff for the middle trilogy, episode 1, 2, and 3, and you see that nobody would ever stand up to George. And George would walk into an art room and just with a rubber stamp go, "This is good, this is good." That's not, you have to be a little bit less, flippant about how you make your artistic choices like that, I think. But he created such a massive industry of people doing busy work around him that it got out of control. And I think it's fine to be critical of that. But the guy is a genius, and he created a lot more than just Star Wars. He created nonlinear editing. He crafted this whole kind of rebel studio model of owning the rights to your properties and locking down licensing deals. And so he made his billions off of the toy stuff that happened with Star Wars. He was heavily invested in THX and Pixar and Lucasfilm Games, and then LucasArts and. And all of the give back that he has given.
LucasArts is the best thing ever. TIE Fighter is my favorite game. I don't know if you ever played that game before.
Just an unbelievable genius and a real sort of prescient person that understood that digital was going to be a huge part of what all of our entertainment was, and so far ahead of the game. So, and Howard the Duck. That was from Star Trek lover Blake Siefkin. He and Red Tails. He made mistakes for sure, but I love George Lucas, so it did hurt to read that. They should have been much more upfront. But I also applaud that Bob Iger acknowledged that. This is the last question. What video game, Victor, made you so frustrated that it almost made you throw down your controller in anger? Well, Contra was one of the last ones. It was incredibly frustrating and repetitive, and I was playing that one alone because it was pre-release, and nobody else. I tried to play online, but nobody else was online. That was often I come close to throwing controllers, but I have matured. I used to do that a long time ago. I've broken a couple of controllers in my day, but I don't do that anymore. That is a very good question. You guys, it is time for you to all go and enjoy your weekends. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on Joker if you're going to go and see the movie. Definitely let us know. You can comment under the review of the movie that will be clipped out as a separate video. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll be back on Monday with a brand new episode of EP Live at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. You can come and watch it live in person at the VFS Cafe at 390 West Hastings. Have yourselves a fantastic weekend, and remember, play forever.